Welcome to the new tutorial where we will discuss the arrays in C++. Actually, arrays are used to store multiple values in a single variable instead of declaring separate variable for each value. For example, the list of students in a class has obtained marks. Okay, so let's suppose we have a student 1 and that student has obtained marks 30. Similarly, another student with student 2. And in this way, we can introduce multiple students of that class and assign them the obtained marks. Okay, so we have four variables of the same type and initialize those variables with integer values. Okay, so actually C++ gives us a facility to declare a single variable, okay, and create multiple slots in that variable. Okay, so how can we say how many slots? So by mentioning the size inside the square and the postfix of the variable. Okay, so this is the data type of the variable std1, and this square bracket represents the slots while 5 represents the number of the slots inside this variable. Okay, so this concept is known as array in C++. Okay, now because we have created 5 slots in this variable, so it means that we can save 5 different integer values in this variable std1. So let's make it simple, st5. Okay, so this is the declaration of the array. Okay, so to now okay, so it means that we have actually declared an array which can hold 5 values. It means we have actually created 5 different slots. st slots number 1, for example, starting with 0. So actually we can present these slots like this one. Okay, so 0 represents the first slot, okay, while 1 represents the second slot. Similarly, this one is the third, this one is the fourth, and this one is the fifth slot. Okay, so 0 inside the st represents actually the address of the slot. Okay, so this slot has address 0 while this slot has address 1, and similarly for other slots there are indices inside the square bracket. Okay, remember that whenever you declare an array, during declaration when you write a literal inside the square bracket, so it means you are writing or you are mentioning the size of array. Okay, so this represents the size of the array while this represents the index number or address of that slot. Okay, so we have created 5 slots that can be represents like this. Okay, so now the question is, how can we initialize values inside these 5 slots? Okay, so to access the first slot, we need to access the first address, that is 0. Okay, is equal to 30. Now 30 will be saved on index number 0 in this variable. Okay, similarly we want to save a value on index 4. We have initialized 40 into last slot of the array. Okay, so you have the freedom to initialize randomly any slot of the array. Okay, so it doesn't matter if you do not keep the order of the indices. Okay, just like this, 20. Okay, so this is how we initialize the values to the indices of any array. So the question is, how can we actually print the values or access the values of these slots. So let's write down the cout statement and mention the variable, that is st, okay, variable name of the array, and then mention the index number of which you want to print out the value. So we shall see 30 on the screen. So like see 30 has been printed here, okay, on the screen. So similarly, you can change this index number to 4. So you can see this index number 4, which is the last index or last slot of the array, has value 40, and that value has been printed on the screen. Okay, what if we print the index number 1 or index number 2, which we have not initialized yet? Okay, so let's see it. Index number 1 has 0 values, and let's see index number 2. Index number 2 has 58. So it means that index number 1 and index number 2 has the garbage values which have been printed on the console screen. So garbage values are the values on of the any variable to which the user or programmer has not assigned any value. Okay, similarly you can see here during initialization we did not initialize index number 1 and index number 2, so therefore we are so therefore the processor gave us a garbage value on the screen on index number 2. So it means that there has been a reservation of memory space for each slot in the RAM. So previously, if there is any value reside inside that location of index number 2 of this array, so that pattern will be printed on the screen. So again you can see here the 58 is the garbage value which is stored in the location st2. Okay, if we want to replace it or initialize, so easy, make it 90. Okay, now build and execute. Now we have successfully achieved the value which we have initialized to index number. So this is a very simple way how to initialize and how to access the values inside the array. Okay, another way of initializing array is to declare another array. For example, st1 with size 5 or with size 3 is equal to. Okay, now you can initialize even during declaration of an array by providing the assignment operator and opening and closing curly braces with a terminator. So you can now initialize values, for example 30, 40 and 20. Okay, so in this scenario you have the freedom to mention the size of array, and if you do not want to mention the array size, then the size will be automatically be drawn from the number of elements in the collection. So we are actually providing 3 values to array st1, so therefore size of this array will be 3. Okay, so we will have index 0, index 1 and index 2. Okay, this is the second method of initializing the values to the array. Okay, if we want to find out the total number of elements in the array, and if we don't know the size of array, for example number of the element in array, so there is a logic that can be implemented to get the number of total elements. But before going to find out the number of elements, we shall see how can we get the size of the array. Okay, so remember that this is integer type of array, so each element in the array has integer size. Okay, for example, this 30 has 4 bytes, this 40 has 4 bytes, and this 420 has 4 bytes. So st1 has size 12 bytes. Let's see how can we identify this. Cout, we shall use the size of operator and just write down the name of the array. Okay, so it will print out the size of the array. Let's delete this one now. Let's see. Here you can see 12 is the size of the array. 12 bytes actually is the size of the array. If we are interested to find out the size of an element inside the array, so write down the size of operator st1 and you can just locate the address of any element irrespective of the specific position. So we have index 0 or index 1 or even index 2. So let's mention the index number 0. And then so we shall see 12 as answer of the for the array, and we shall see 4 for a single element of this array. Okay, here you can see 12 is the size of the whole array, while 4 is the size of a single element in the array. Okay, so if you want to find out the number of elements in the array, so there is an interesting formula to find out the number of elements inside the array, that is to use the size of operator. Size of operator. Okay, so st1 size of the whole array divided by size of operator of a single element. Okay, 0 or 1 or 2. So in this way we will be able to get the number of elements inside the array. Here you can see now. First one is for the size of the whole array. Second one represents the size of individual element or slot inside the array. And 3 represents the total number of elements or total number of slots or size of the array in terms of total number of slots. Okay, so these can be used later on in different programming logics where we will haven't any size of the array and we will be in need to determine the size of the array in terms of the elements, or even we will be in need to find out the size in terms of bytes. Okay, so now let's use the for loop with these arrays. Its integer I is equal to 0, I is less than we don't have size here, so you can just copy this formula and write it down here. Okay, and I plus plus. Okay, you can take input from the user and save the value into the array using index number. Okay, so this I means that in first iteration I will be 0. Okay, so on index, let me write in comments that in first iteration index will be 0. Okay, so on index number 0, on address number 0, or on index number 0, the input will be saved from the user. Similarly, in second iteration, index number 1 will be prompt and the value will be saved from the user. Similarly, in third iteration, the index number 2 will be prompt and the value will be saved from the user in index number 2. Okay, then I want to print out those values, so just copy this loop and paste it on. Okay, so here I want to see out the same values, change the operator. Okay, so I want first to print out the value inside index number 0, then inside index number 1, then inside index number 2. But I also want to separate those values by next line. Okay, and let's see, let me, okay, let's see. Okay, so 12, 4, and 3 are the answers to the size of operator that we have already used here in the C++ programming. Now loop has been waiting. Now loop is waiting for the input from the user in first iteration. So on index number 0, I want to save the value 87. On index number 1, I want to save the value 80. And on index number 2, I want to save the value 60. Okay. Now you can see that another loop has just printed those values on the console screen, separated by the new line. Okay, so this is the whole concept behind how to declare an array and how to initialize the values in different methods. Okay, you can use the assignment operator and then assign values to each specific index by mentioning the uh, name of the variable and index number. The second method is during declaration you can just assign the values in form of the collection. Okay, and the third is you can use the loop and initialize all the slots inside the array.